Okay, my outstanding friends, Roger once again, Mudfossil University. I'm going to be talking about Myron Cook, who I contacted long ago, and it didn't go all that well. But I want to show you the kind of things he shows, and I'm just going to comment on what because he's looking for the abnormal things, the anomalies that most people don't pay attention to, but he doesn't pay attention to them either. What did I show you what he misses, and he doesn't want to talk about it. He says, I have nothing to talk to you about. I said, can I ask you a couple questions? Nope, I have nothing to talk to you about. That's what I get from academics, which he is. He's a geology, I think maybe he's a professor, I'm not sure. He's a geologist, that I know. Let's dig into his video, and I will show you why I found it incredible. Absolutely incredible that he missed what he missed, and he's digging into something that cross-bedding when he should be looking at, well, I'll show you what he should be looking at. Well, okay, my friends, a shocker du jour absolute. This is from something Myron Cook was doing, showing how he explains this thing here. He totally ignores this. I said, Myron, didn't you see that? Can we discuss this? He says, nope, I have nothing to talk to you about. I said, well, c'est la vie. Now, this is the inside of his throat. This isn't even outside of his body. You see out here? Those are actually scales, big heavy-duty scales that surround the whole outside of his throat. That's the little tube inside his throat. And Typhon has the exact same deal. I believe this is probably the dragon's last meal. This is what he missed. These are all dragon scales. Look. All right, and it runs way back. He's looking at this saying, how did this thing get here? Oh, it's the guts. It's the guts. It could be a part of, I don't know, it's some guts. I mean, this is what I can't believe. This is the thumbnail. Look at the dragon scales. All the way. I mean, you just go, and he's down here standing, he's just like a little peanut right down here. And that's something to do with his digestive system, I would imagine. Lungs or who knows what. Alright, just to prep you, this is Typhon. This is his head and his throat. We're going to be going into his throat all the way down his body. The head comes up around here, and that's pretty much the outline of him. His red flared eye, and he's spitting all kinds of toxins down at a fish below him. Now here's another shot where I highlighted around his neck, because this stuff has nothing to do with his body. That is the runoff of a dead, decaying creature. It's the bodily fluids that just drain out. Now there are cuts in him that are black and red, and yes, they are blood, and I'll show you that right here. This is Typhon in the desert. You're going to see him in a second. This is where his throat was cut, right here. Right across there. His throat was cut by Zeus with his great and mighty sword. This red and this black is the colors of blood. This is the colors of just runoff of decaying bodily fluids. All right, he's just draining out. And this is all the stuff he spit down at the fish. All right, so let's go from here. All right, if you've been around here, you should have seen this at least 100 times. That is Typhon. That's his head, his red flared eye. This is his throat. Exactly like I just showed you from what Myron was showing. Now, can I show you the same scales and the same deterioration? Yes, I can. And here it is now. We're going down into his throat. That's his throat right here. All that running down. Now, these are his scales. Those are way outside his throat. And then inside that, the throat has collapsed. And this is the tube that runs down to his tummy. All right, so these are the scales. And you see they're hinged? That means he can bend like this. His neck will be flexible. Otherwise, if it was one rigid thing, he couldn't bend. Now, remember the other one had all of those scale-looking things? Well, they're right in the center of his throat. That's the center of his throat. Here's a pretty good shot of it. All right, those are all scales. And so are these. And that's exactly what we saw from what Myron Cook was. He calls them flat irons. He says, oh, those are just flat irons. I said, no, those are dragon scales. That was the end of that discussion. And they run all the way down his throat. I mean, look. You see it? These are all dragon scales. And these are all other ones now. They're a little more prominent down here. But they go all the way, all the way, all the way, all the way, all the way down until it gets down into his guts. Now what's going on here? I don't know. That could be his tonsils or something. I have no idea. But it still runs down. This is his throat. This is just insane. Now this is another cut. He was lashed a couple times by Zeus with his great and mighty sword, and this is one of them. The other one killed him up by his end of his neck. But this is all still his throat, and it goes forever. This thing was absolutely enormous. It's 1,200 miles long, from tip of the nose to tip of the tail. I think it's 1,195 miles from here to there. And that's what they said. He was the largest creature ever produced on Earth. And he was sent to kill the gods, and the gods turned themselves into animals like fish. And he spit all his dragon venom at this fish, tried to kill it, and succeeded in damaging it for sure. Whether that's what killed it, I don't know. But here it is laying in the desert. And that's the big top fin. And this is the little bottom fin, and the tail runs right out around here. It's a little runoff over the top of it, because that's where the Sahara drained into the ocean out here. You see that? That's runoff. Ask a kid what that is, like a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. Yeah, that's mud, Daddy. And it ran right out here and created the Cape Verde Islands. And Atlantis is right here. I looked at this thing upside down. There's zero question. And here is the Straits, which they said was just outside of Atlantis, which gave them control of the Sahara Ocean. Well, I don't know if it was from the fish or whatever happened, collapsed it, but it collapsed around the edge here. And all that stuff ran out. And Plato says they will never speak of mud again after this runoff. There was so much mud. And it all went out and created Cape Verde Islands. Then it came back in and created a mound right in front of that. Everybody said, oh no, there's a mound in front of it. Yes, it was from the backlash. When everything goes out, it comes back. And when it came back, it brought a bunch of mud back with it and created a little bit of a bump right here. And this fish here is just stunningly large, and he's in very good shape. You can see all his blood vessels and everything. If you want to come up here and look at it, it's quite easy. You get a doctor to take a look at it and say, what do you see? What do you see, doc? If he says, I don't see anything, that's just hills and valleys, and you go get yourself a new doctor. All right, this was the top map in the world, 1375. I think it was, I can't remember who commissioned it, but it was the known world, and it was very detailed, who ruled what sections. And this right here is Typhon. He starts here, his throat is cut right there, his whole dragon scaled body runs all the way back, all the way back, all the way back till the end, and it flares out way, way, way back here. That is all the way across North Africa, exactly where he is. That's the Red Sea. There's Typhon. They knew about him. And it was written in Apollodorus 1.6.3. He was the biggest creature there was ever created, and it was a product of Gaia mating with Tartarus. And he was attacking the gods who changed themselves into animals, and the one that he was attacking was a fish. That one right there. And that fish died. Well, I don't know what it died from, but he spit all the stuff out at it. You see that? That's all the toxins. And it come out of his beard. Isn't that strange? There's his red flared eye. There's his nose all up around here. You have to come up and look at him if you want. But that's all the nastiest toxin that's ever been developed on the face of the planet. And it comes down here and just attacks and attacks and attacks, and ate right into all that fish's vital flesh on his back right here. And you can actually see the blood vessels and the veins and arteries, even the lymph ducts, the capillaries. You can see every little detail. Now, I should focus in on here a little better. It takes a while to home in, which it is right now. These are all arteries and veins. The black are the veins. The arteries are the big ones. These are blood vessels running down to capillaries, which are right here. These are the capillaries, and then they dump their stuff into the vein, which is completely porous, and it sucks it all up. And then every spot right here, you see these things? Those are lymph ducts. That's how detailed this thing is. These are lymph ducts. I don't think they even know about them, other than they're part of the fascia. And that's the hottest topic in medicine right now, is fascia. That's interstitium. It's your bodily immune system, basically. They never knew about it before. It's where all the bacteria and enzymes are. Anyway, what bothers me is, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. I say, will you look at this? No, they won't look, because there's no evidence. Why should they look? That's academia. I call it PhDolia. It means they can't see what's in front of their face. They say, I see everything that's not there. I see you can't even see what is there. Because you won't look. If you looked and said, no, you're wrong. And that's what Myron did. I couldn't believe it. I said, Myron, did you see the scales? He said, I have nothing to talk to you about. I said, do you want to understand what you're looking at, buddy? And I guess he doesn't. I do. I understand it. I understand Devil's Tower, too. I still understand everything now because I understand giants. That's the wrinkle zone at the top. Unexplained. No, it's not. It's just unexamined. I have the answers for all of this now because the ancient texts were true. You see this? This is an unusual sandstone monument. He's looking at this and saying, wow, look at this. Where did it come from? Where did it go? Now, this is what he's looking at, but look where he is. All right, I'm just going to have to come back to this. I spotted a feature on Google Earth. He spotted the guts of a dragon. All right, let's take a look at it. Don't forget, this is what he's interested in, some little piece in the middle here. And the whole thing is a dragon splayed wide open. No, I don't want to be critical, but I said to Myron, I said, didn't you see all this stuff on the side? He didn't take that well.
A deep draw, and then back up the other side, and you see these big boulders clear on the other side of the draw. That's pretty interesting.
Those are scales, dragon scales. Now this is what he's so interested in, which is interesting. Well, what's it doing here? That's the guts of this beast, and it's laid out here just absolutely stunningly large. Now watch when I think he comes up.
From above we can see these relationships better. The bottom of the draw runs right along this blue line with a substantial ridge on the left side. Notice all the large boulders strewn along the back side of the ridge. How did they get there? Could it be that
the creature died here, and that's the guts of his body? Maybe this is the food he was digesting. I don't know. Some giants.
Large pieces of the sandstone monument broke away, rolled down this steep slope, and carried enough momentum to roll up and over the ridge? If so, why aren't there more boulders in the bottom of the draw?
Because it was the guts. Where's the guy's guts? There's dragon scales everywhere.
These are the kind of questions I love to think about. And these boulders are quite large.
Look.
I hiked to this end.
Whoops, hold on. I mean, it's incredible that he doesn't understand those are dragon scales. It's laid wide open. This is a huge, huge creature. Oh, look, the whole thing is laid wide open like this. The whole Look at it. I don't know how far it goes, but it goes a very, very long way. Absolutely enormous. And he missed the whole thing. This is just a whole wide open thing. And in the middle, there's the guts. He's going into the guts and saying, well, what's going on with these guts? You see all the dragon scales? He's up in here somewhere. I think he's standing right there. That's him. That's how big this thing is. And he's looking up saying, how did these boulders get up there? That was the guy's last meal. Look at that. You know about Typhon. Everybody knows about Typhon. Let's look at his scales. The same scales. The dragons were everywhere around this earth. Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Let me just quickly show you Quetzalcoatl. He's on the east coast of the USA and is exactly identical to what they show here. He's eating big, gigantic humans. Now, the size he is on the east coast, the size of that human could walk around this earth in 5 minutes. I can't account for this. All I can tell you is he is there on the east coast, and I'm going to show you this right now because they're doing a weather thing about the area in the Gulf where he spits out is a dead zone. All right, don't forget what he looks like. There's his nose. And here's what's happening in the Gulf. They look for this dead zone every year. There's his nose, and he's spitting this out. And it's all nasty, nasty stuff. And it kills everything in this area. Fish get out of there to protect themselves from being poisoned. Now, you saw Typhon. I can't account for that. Don't ask me to account for it. It's here. Now we have to start thinking how their bodies are here. These are supposed to be immortal creatures. This is supposed to be a god. That's supposed to be an immortal creature. There's body laying there. Where are the rest of them? Is the spirit somewhere else? And here's Quetzalcoatl. There he is right there. That's his head. And he's spitting out into the Gulf, and that's the dead zone, see it? This is his nose, up around, this is his head. The different colors, because it's a different chemistry of the body. I don't know, there's feathers sticking up out of his headdress up here, and his throat and everything else comes up all the way up the east coast. These are green mountains up here. These are feathers. Those, my friends, are feathers. And that's why they're so green. You can actually buy feather meal. It's saturated with nitrogen. And these are the feathers. Now, it's precisely as he appears in the ancient text. Comes all the way up around here, and there's his head. Up here is his feathers. This is his headdress. Remember, let's just go back and be sure you understand. There he is here. But here's what they portrayed him as being. There's his headdress, the feathers coming all up over here. Here's his snaky body, all feathers at the end, which now we call the Green Mountains. And he's eating a giant human, so he can't be all bad. All right, this is Quetzalcoatl's headdress, right up here. These are the feathers in his headdress. You see that ridge running right down there? Take your time and look at it carefully. You can see it. You see the two sides to it running straight up. And then you see all these little fluty things running off to the sides. Take your time and look at it carefully. You have to really study things to understand. All right, there's little pieces sliding down the sides here. And there's a centerpiece. And you see how there's green, 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 green. They're not just everything's green. And there's like spots. And the same thing here. You see all these little lines? Those are feathers. All of that is feathers. I'm going to show you in the microscope the same thing. This going down the center and all the little bits coming off the sides to make the feather. Now, let's see where that came from. This shot, if we back it out of here, coming down, they're all over the place here. And they're coming out of Quetzalcoatl's head. Right there. That's what we were just looking at. Right there, there's his headdress. All right, now here it is here. Here's his throat. And it comes right up around here, and all that there, that's his throat. See all that squiggly stuff coming down here, coming down here, coming down, coming. And then it spits out right out here, out through here, into the Gulf, and everything dies. He must have some toxin in him that's leaking out. Now there's his two beards. Right here, there's one, and there's the other. Let me back off. You can see him a little better. See him? One there, one there. He snakes all the way up the East Coast. Now, I'm going to go through the history of Quetzalcoatl. All this stuff got to be really researched all over again because nobody's ever considered it's real. And it does appear to be quite real to me. All right, so we'll talk soon. I love y'all.